When my son shared his lunch with his hungry friends, I thought it was one of those heartwarming parenting moments that make you proud. But just hours later, I was staring into the furious eyes of a mother who demanded that her son deserved everything my child had. She didn't just yell. She started a war that turned our whole school upside down. It all began on a sunny Friday afternoon. My son Ethan, 12 years old and full of kindness, walked through the door after school with a grin on his face. He told me proudly that he had shared half of his lunch, pizza slices, homemade cookies, and juice boxes, with his two best friends, Daniel and Chris. They had forgotten their lunch money that day, and Ethan didn't think twice before splitting his meal with them. "Mom, they were really hungry. You should have seen how happy they were when I gave them food," he said, his eyes shining with innocent pride. As a parent, that moment made my heart swell. In a world where kids are often taught to compete, Ethan chose kindness. I hugged him and told him how proud I was. But I had no idea that his generosity would trigger a storm we never saw coming. The following Monday morning, while walking Ethan to school, a woman stormed across the parking lot toward us. Her face was red, her jaw tight, her hair pulled back into a bun so sharp it looked like it hurt. She had that "I'm about to explode" look, and I instinctively tightened my grip on Ethan's hand. "Are you the parent of Ethan?" she barked. "Yes," I replied cautiously. Without hesitation, she jabbed her finger toward me and shouted, "Your son gave food to those boys last week while my son sat there with nothing to eat. How dare you let that happen?" I blinked, stunned. "I'm sorry, who are you?" "I'm Tyler's mother," she snapped. "Your son should have shared with him, too. If he's giving out food, then everyone deserves some. My son deserves it more than anyone." Ethan shifted nervously behind me. "Mom, let's go," he whispered. But this woman wasn't done. She ranted in the middle of the school parking lot, her voice growing louder and drawing stares from other parents. She accused me of raising a selfish child. She said Ethan was cruel for excluding her son Tyler. I tried to explain calmly. My son chose to share his food with his friends. It was his choice. He's not obligated to feed everyone else's kids. That only made her angrier. She crossed her arms, lifted her chin, and said, "If your son has food, then my son deserves food too. Don't you dare teach him otherwise." It was in that moment I realized we weren't dealing with a misunderstanding. This woman, this Karen, wasn't just upset. She was entitled to the core. The very next day, she escalated the situation. She marched into the principal's office and demanded a new school policy. If one child shared food, they must share with everyone. She even suggested I should send extra lunches every day so her son could get a portion. At the meeting, the principal looked just as shocked as I was. But Karen didn't care. She threw around words like traumatized and discrimination, claiming that her poor Tyler had cried while watching Ethan's friends enjoy food he didn't get. I calmly reminded them all that Ethan had done something generous. He had no obligation to share beyond what he wanted. But Karen wasn't listening. She leaned across the desk, her voice sharp and cutting. "Your son is making mine feel left out. You need to fix it." The principal tried to mediate, but Karen threatened to sue the school. By the end of that meeting, I could see we were entering a battle, and only got worse. Karen started whispering to other parents, painting Ethan as some sort of villain who made her son feel excluded. She posted long rants on the school's parent Facebook group about selfish families who refused to teach their kids to share. She even cornered Ethan during recess, scolding him in front of his classmates and making him cry. He came home one afternoon with tears streaming down his face. "Mom, am I a bad person for not giving Tyler my food too?" My heart shattered hearing those words. I knelt down, hugged him tightly, and told him, "Ethan, you are one of the kindest kids I know. Sharing is wonderful, but no one can demand your kindness. You are not obligated to give away everything you have." But Karen wasn't finished. A week later, there was pounding on my front door. When I opened it, Karen shoved past me, storming into my living room without an invitation. She held a notebook stuffed with printed blogs and articles. "I've done research," she declared. "Fairness means everyone gets the same. I want you to sign an agreement that whenever you pack food for Ethan, you'll include extra for Tyler." I nearly laughed in disbelief. Absolutely not. If your son needs food, that's your responsibility, not mine. My son's kindness is his choice, not a requirement." She exploded, her face turning crimson. "You're heartless. You're raising a selfish brat. The whole neighborhood will know about this." I pointed to the door and said firmly, "Get out." And I shut it behind her, heart pounding. But she still wasn't done. The next week, she filed a formal complaint with the school board, accusing Ethan of bullying by food exclusion. We were dragged into yet another exhausting meeting. By then, though, something had shifted. Other parents were tired of her antics. They stood up for Ethan, telling the board how he was always kind, polite, and respectful. They spoke about how Karen had caused problems with nearly every family in the neighborhood, complaining about parking, yard decorations, even kids laughing too loudly. It became clear this wasn't about food. This was about her entitlement. She wanted control. She wanted the world to bend to her will. Halfway through the meeting, I looked around the room and asked, "What would you do if another parent demanded that your child hand over their lunch every single day, just because their kid wanted it?" The silence was deafening. Everyone knew the answer. The school board dismissed her complaint. They ruled that children have the right to share, or not share, their own food. No one could be forced into mandatory generosity. Karen was furious. She stormed out, threatening to pull her son from the school. But her bluff fell flat. Tyler liked his school, and he had friends. Even he didn't want to leave. From that point on, the tide turned. Parents who had been quiet now rallied around Ethan. They sent kind notes, stopped us in the parking lot to offer support, even baked cookies for him. The whispers Karen spread about us lost all power, and she quickly found herself isolated. Weeks later, things slowly went back to normal. Ethan still shared food with Daniel and Chris sometimes, but without guilt. And he learned something deeper, that kindness is powerful, but boundaries are just as important. As for Karen, she avoided us at school pickup, her pride too wounded to apologize. Her son still glanced at Ethan's pizza every so often, but Ethan smiled and kept eating, knowing the truth. Generosity only means something when it comes freely. And as for me, I walked away with a stronger bond with my son and a reminder I'll never forget. Kindness is beautiful, but kindness demanded is no kindness at all.